The calendar is correlated with aging, but it does not cause aging. These researchers were looking at vitamin D3, omega-3s, and placebo to find out, do any of these common supplements slow our rate of aging? We're talking very practical. Why are relationships so influential on our longevity and our health?
Shawn, welcome back to the show, man.
This is the greatest studio in podcast history.
Come on, you're just saying that. You're just messing with us.
He's been on a lot. He knows, man. I believe him.
Yeah, that's it. Come on.
Sounds like I'll take the compliment. Go ahead. Tell me how great we are.
We were just talking about how long it's been since we had you on. It was right after you wrote your book, right? Your first book.
The cookbook that my wife loves. I swear she's in that all the time.
That was 2023.
Yeah.
Was that?
So that was my latest book. Yeah,
that was the latest
the
one.
Eat Smarter Family Cookbook. Yeah.
That's right.
It's the #1 cookbook, new release in the country when it came out.
We have all kinds of cookbooks. We cook out of that more than any other cookbook.
I didn't know that.
Man, come on. That's what it's all about. That makes me so happy.
I mean, maybe because I guess it fits like our wheelhouse of the food that we're always trying to make food like that. And I don't know too many cookbooks that are balanced like that nutritionally and taste good. Like it's just, I don't know. I feel like it's either or a lot of times. Either like it's all about how good can you make it, macros are horrible, or it's just all about macros fitting a certain calorie and then it tastes like crap. And it's just, you did such a good job of that. So
thank you. That means everything.
Yeah.
We were also just talking, and you were talking about how you had been going through some difficult times since then, but how you kept going back to the show, and how 9 out of 10 times, I think you said that the interviews you felt like they were for you.
Yeah.
Things that you were interested in, or things you want to learn about.
Things I needed to hear.
Things you needed to hear. What were the things that interested you the most during this period of time? Like, what have you learned? Because you're a smart dude. Every time I talk to you, I always think, man, this guy really smart dude, really knows his stuff, but also learns a lot. Like, have any of your opinions changed, or have you grown in any of those areas since we had you on?
Yeah. The main thing would definitely be just the emphasis on relationships and how impactful they are on our psychology, on our practices. And, it's just even more so than even previous. And a big thing for me, man, was just like, and this, especially as guys, like we tend to compartmentalize. Yeah. We tend to process things just enough to keep going, And so I got to kind of confront some of those things. And for example, I had an expert who came in who was like the world leading expert on burnout. I didn't know what the fuck burnout was. Like that didn't exist to me. Like what? And also we relate something like burnout to work. And I'm just like, I love my work. I get up every day for this. It feels great. But it's not just the one thing. It's an overall life construct, right? So maybe you're dealing with family difficulties. Like I mentioned, I just rattled out to you guys like so many people that passed away that were close to me. And it all happened really in a short amount of time. And so even that just psychologically making me feel more and more kind of depleted and just kind of struggling to figure things out. Because when you lose somebody, it's you have to restructure how you think, right? In the same way when you gain somebody. And this was another revelation, was like every time I had a child, it's like another part of your brain is confiscated. Like it is permanently devoted to that human being that just showed up, right? And so it starts to split you, right? And so when my daughter was born, she was my first, and immediately there was a split in my brain that always focused on where is she, what is she doing, is she okay?
Right.
I got to protect her. When my son came next, my oldest son, another split happened, right? Can I be the man that I need to be? Am I going to be able to like throw the football around with my kid and teach him how to be a good man and all these things? Then my baby boy, who's here at the studio, I'm so grateful to say, shows up. And again, it splits you again. And so these are all things that just kind of these conversations, these experts that I had the opportunity to talk to, the things that I was inspired to do master classes on myself and kind of deconstruct. It was all just a part of the healing process. You guys know this. The thing that I love most about you guys, and I think about you guys like actually pretty frequently, because you guys hold each other accountable. You have something so special here where if one of you guys is dealing with something or struggling, like the other two guys, like just the energy in here, it's like going to keep you thinking about how can I improve? I got to figure this stuff out. It's such a powerful force.
We talk about how lucky we are to the exact point you're making. I think men do a really bad job of seeking out other men to confide in, hold them accountable to. We tend to hang out still with the guys that we probably went through high school or college with. We have different reasons why we're attached to them. Maybe they're not always growth minded or sharing those personal things. This forces us to have that bond and relationship. And I think because of that, we really value that ability for us to hold each other accountable, push each other and grow. It's like, I'd say it's one of my favorite parts about that relationship. Cause you're right. I think,
iron sharpens iron.
and men don't do a good job with this, man.
become hermits.
We're really bad at it. We really are.
Do you have a group of men that you know you can go to that are going to call you out, that you could tell them, hey man, I'm feeling weak or I'm feeling tired? Do you have that group?
That's such a great question. First of all, I'm gonna say yes, there are a couple of people, but I didn't grow up like that. And so I was very hesitant, extremely hesitant, even through my struggles, with losing people that are close to me, changes in my household, having kids move out. And a lot of that stuff was a big struggle. And I know that some of the men in my life could be very helpful, because oftentimes, especially when you're dealing with kids, it's very helpful to have those outside voices.
Oh yeah.
Right, that they respect. And so I knew that those people were there for me to reach out to, and they would always affirm that, but I was just like, nah, I got it. I'll figure it out. Mm-hmm. And so it took a minute, man. It took a while. And the most important thing is the exposures, right? Just being around them was these touch points. And so one of those people was actually Dr. Michael Beckwith, right? So he's the founder of Agape Spiritual Center. And I met him while I was speaking at an event of all places in Portugal, which is crazy because I'm like, just coming from where I come from, when I found out about him, it was the movie The Secret.
Yeah.
I was living in the hood, like Ferguson, Missouri, mattress on the floor, and but I felt connected to him, like of all the people and the messages. And then I ended up meeting this guy on the other side of the planet, like it was just magical. And so we instantly connected, and he's been there kind of like a mentor and a brother and like a father figure too in some ways. And so just dealing with processing the loss of my father, but it wasn't even so much losing my father, which he was in assisted living for about 12 years because of drugs and alcohol, brain damage, and he just couldn't shake these seizures. And he had gotten clean, but he, these seizures and just continued degradation with his brain. He had to stay in his home. But losing him was, for me, we said this before the show, there's levels to it, but I just felt this very strong sense of gratitude because I got to experience, you get to choose what you focus on. Let me put it like that, right? I could focus on all the negative things, and a lot of negative things happen, but I got to grow up with somebody who had this incredible childlike nature too. He was a very strong, dedicated man. Very strong alcoholic too. But he got up every day and went to work no matter what. And I picked that up, and that's a great quality to have, But also when our times together was like playing video games, or he come out and play basketball with my friends. Nobody else's dad did that. And guess what? My son knows this. I'm the dad that's out playing basketball with the kids. Like these are those things that I picked up, and I'm so grateful that I had that opportunity,
Is it hard for a guy like you who is probably consistently affirmed through the world that through your own work, your own effort, you're going to get the stuff that you want? Because you do that. You work hard, you bust your butt. Is it hard for a guy like you, after being able to do that, to say, yeah, I need to depend on other people?
Exactly. You just said it. I've been that person. And so the other thing I picked up from him, he didn't mess with people, right? He's very much a lone wolf. He would have like one friend, maybe who'll come around like while he's drinking. And, I kind of picked up that temperament, whereas my brother and sister, they have tons of friends. They mess with a lot of people. And that kind of lone wolf mentality just kind of went with me through my adulthood. And, but then the greatest blessing of starting the Model Health Show was my relationships. And I didn't even sign up for that, man. I didn't know that was going to happen. And you guys know this too. It's like, it's such a blessing to meet all these incredible people.
Having conversations.
Yeah, like I had no idea. And so it just really kind of opened me up to how powerful that is. And, you know, with that being said, with Michael Beckwith in that instance, it wasn't so much about dealing with my father's loss. It was dealing with my family, right? Because I was seen as, quote, the one, right? I'm the one who like made it, figured some things out. I took care of everything with the funeral and all the different pieces.
But where do you turn?
Exactly. And because of that, man, and I haven't really talked about this, and my son knows this, but I had this pain, this terrible pain that popped up in my neck, in my shoulder. I couldn't turn my head after he passed away like 2 days later. And I'm just like, but I don't feel like sad or hurt or angry. Like I feel love. And, you know, I finally talked with Michael Beckwith about it, like just open, like, hey, you know, like this is going on. And he just asked me some questions. And it was mainly about, you know, my little brother and sister, because growing up in that environment, they had an opportunity or a choice to make. Like, are we going to model our parents or are we going to do something differently? And they modeled my parents significantly. And I'm just like, with him passing, that was another thing. I was so hopeful. No, not even hopeful. I almost had this internal demand that, you see, this is what can happen. Don't let this happen to you. I hope you guys get the message now. And I did, but it was unconscious. But talking with him, he helped me to realize and redirect that it was my expectation that was causing me pain. Expecting them to be a certain way instead of just seeing them as they are and loving them as they are. And so, and I wouldn't believe it if, I'm very skeptical, very analytical, but the next day I woke up in that pain that had been haunting me. Like, we went on a vacation because we had a vacation scheduled to go to Maui. I've never been to Maui, so I'm in Maui and I can't turn my neck, right? And I went and got the special like Lomi massage. This little Hawaiian lady put her elbows all up in it, destroyed the knot that was in my shoulder. But then it popped up on the other side, right? And I just,
that's funny.
It wasn't until I got back, got on the phone with him, told him what was going on, changed the way I was thinking, and the pain went away.
To try to separate the mind from the body is silly.
It's so silly.
Talk about the data, Shawn. I know you're a big data guy and a science guy. Talk about what the science says of relationships and what it does for our health, longevity, how it impacts us. Because for me personally, this is the most fascinating data. There's almost nothing that will predict mortality or longevity like your relationships, which is wild, because you're like, what does that have to do with my physical body? But talk about some of that and some of the people you've talked to.
Sure. Well, one of the largest studies ever conducted was conducted by researchers at Brigham Young University. And this was a meta-analysis of 148 studies and over 300,000 study participants. So it's a big data set.
Yeah.
And they're tracking these individuals, following them for a significant amount of time, and just looking at all these various lifestyle factors to see how it impacts their longevity, how long they live. And after compiling all the data, they found that individuals who had healthy social bonds had a 50% reduction in all-cause mortality. Said another way, individuals with healthy relationships had a 50% boost in longevity. All right. And so this was a greater increase than beating obesity, than stopping smoking, all these other factors. It was the quality of their relationships that stood out far and away more than anything.
I find that study so fascinating because of how much like we demonize smoking cigarettes, as we should. It's very unhealthy for you to do. But like we talk, if you were to ask the average person, you know, what's the best thing or the healthiest thing you can do for longevity, they'd probably say not smoke, not drink, something like that. When in reality, it's, you know, how much energy are you putting towards building relationships with people? Now, when you you start unpacking this, you're connecting these dots. Do you begin to put new practices into your life, or you like, because it's a lot of times you know the data, you know what you need to be doing, but then to actually take action to foster those relationships, especially for a man, especially a man that's older, you know, to now build new relationships or focus on those things. Do you find yourself having to create new habits or do new things? Like, has stuff like that changed for you at all?
Yeah, that's a great question. Now, just to lean in, let's use a cigarette example. Because chances are if somebody starts smoking, it's because of a relationship, right? Drinking, what you eat.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah.
Your sleep habits. Your sleep habits are more influenced by your wife and kids than anybody on earth by far.
Fact.
Right? Your exercise habits are influenced by your relationships more than anything. I can go on and on what it is. And this is just from practical. So we're not even talking about like quantum level and all that stuff. We're talking very practical. Why are relationships so influential on our longevity and our health? It's because it's the tip of the spear. It's what affects everything else that you attribute to your health and wellness. Now, with that said, I've simply decided to be more intentional and strategic about who I have around me, right? And my son, funny enough, my son who's sitting right back there, he asked me today, you know, with all the shows that I do and all these incredible people I've interviewed, he was like, do you usually become friends with them? And I'm like, yeah, I mean, pretty much we're friends, but like we don't like have long-term relationships. And it kind of made me sad, but also told him that there's seasons, right? Certain people that I meet that enter my life, we might spend a season together. Maybe it's like we're close for a couple of years, right? And so that's what, when you asked me the question initially, like who are some of these people? And I thought about my guy, Bedros Koulian, right? So there was a season where me and Bedros were like seeing each other more frequently. He's in Chino Hills. So it's a nice little trek from LA, but he actually flew out to St. Louis to kick it with me. He brought his family and we all went out together to Ted Drew's. Frozen custard. Shout out to Ted Drew's. You know what I mean? And just we went and got barbecue together, and just like, and the same thing when I came out to see him, and you know, just being able, in that high level of thinking and that inspiration that he brings being around him, and him having these things from me as well that added value to his life. But we haven't seen each other in probably 2 years now. It's just kind of flown by, but I think about him often and I pray for him and his family. But I just actually did the opening keynote for his event, because he had a scheduling thing where he couldn't be there to open his own event, the fitness business, you know, event. And he had enough invested in me to trust me to do that for him, you know? So
do you find it easier to be vulnerable and open when you're on a podcast than you are in your real life, in your personal life, I should say?
Mate, that is such a great question too. Oh my God, man, I got chills from that one. My wife gets mad at me because she finds out, like, my mother-in-law listens to every episode of my show. And
Find out more from your show than they do talking.
She'll find out that I cried and then tell my wife, she's like, I've never seen you cry. I don't know, you know, it's just, I think it's cathartic to be able to talk about certain things, but also I was very, exposed like the last couple of years with all the things that happened. Like I just felt more sensitive, you know? And so having these conversations, like stuff would just come out, you know? But it's not that I'm trying to like, you know, not, you know, cry around my wife or whatever. Like I didn't cry. I cried last time I cried was like 16. And then I think I had like one Johnny Depp crybaby tear when my grandmother passed away. And then that was it. I didn't cry again until, I don't know, my mid-30s. You know what I mean? It wasn't some kind of badge of honor. But of course, there's a subconscious thing there of being tough, yes. But also, like, I'm just not somebody who cries a lot, you know? I'm very aware of circumstances and just kind of like, I think about them. I'm a thinker. You know, but just allowing myself to be more in my feelings, you know, which can be seen as a negative thing in our culture. Like there's even a term like you're all in your feelings, you know, but doing that in the context of safety and insight, you know, and so it's very cathartic. So, and also to answer your question though, I've had the most amazing time with my wife, you know, through especially this last like 6 months, you know, because of all the processing of things that have happened separately. For her, is voice texting with her friends and these little mini fucking podcasts they do for each other. All right. So she's been processing stuff as well, because all this loss, like she lost her father as well. Yeah. You know, our son moved out of the house and changed the dynamics of the household. Our baby boy is growing up and he's a teenager now. Right. And so we've been able to, again, have relationships where we can have a space to be able to process things and come back together and to process and have great conversations and experiences together as well.
Yeah, I can identify with a lot of what you're saying. I think it's very difficult when you've accomplished things in life by your own merit, working hard. I can do this. but eventually get hit with something where you're like, I can't, I don't know. I heard something from a friend of mine that hit me so hard. I thought it was so true. We always hear, I don't know if you've ever heard this, the people will say, God only gives you what you can handle. And my buddy's like, that's not biblical at all. He says, God gives you more than you can handle, so you lean on him. And I was like, oh no, I've been doing this all wrong.
It's surrender.
Yeah, and I asked you about that vulnerability question because another thing that struck me was somebody told me you can only, your friendships can only be as deep as you allow them to get with you. So if you're only so deep, that's as deep as it's going to go, which means you got to take a step out into the scary, what's this person going to do with this information? Do they think I'm weak? Are they going to think do I feel weak?
Yeah.
It makes it very, very difficult.
It's why it's so important to really know thyself.
Yeah.
This incredible tenet. But, I love the saying or statement or belief that people are in your life for a reason, for a season, or for a lifetime.
Yeah.
Right? And we tend to get very obviously attached to certain things, to certain ways of being, to certain lifestyle factors and comfortability. And, just to go back to my son's question about my friendships, the most incredible friendships are manifesting now where I was on some Drake energy, like, let me no new friends, that kind of thing. Yeah. Like, I'm good. But just being open and receptive. And, I could see who's in my life right now for a lifetime. And it would be, my wife, Michael Beckwith, for example. They just come to mind. They pop into my mind. But there are people in my life for this season of my life right now that are so amazing, so thoughtful. One of those people, I'm going to shout her out, is Dr. Gabrielle Lyon.
Yeah, she's great.
Love
her.
Lyon.
Of everybody that I've met the past, 5 years, she is the person who checks on me the most often.
She's very genuine.
What's cool about that, it's so impressive considering everything she's done in her life, how busy she is. And I'll back that up. Out of the four of us, I tend to communicate the most with our friends from the podcast, and she beats me. She's the first one to always reach out first, and I'm like, God, how'd she do that? That's my thing. I'm good at that, and she's better than I am at. She's so good about checking in, and I always think, man, I'm so blown away by the amount of relationships that she manages, all the things she does in her life, and still has the time to do that. But values what we're talking about, right?
Yeah. Shawn, one of the things that I find really fascinating, that's really been something that we've only really been talking about for the last 10 years, but probably mostly for the last 5 years, is how our genes express themselves, or epigenetics. There was this belief in the past that you had your genes and that was it. But now we know that behavior, lifestyle, thoughts, relationships changes how they react. You're not set. They're not set in stone. So you may have a predisposition for anxiety or for heart disease or for other things. And what you do, how you think will change how they express themselves. What are some of the things that you've learned in some of your interviews and in your study about epigenetics and just how plastic they seem to be?
Yeah. So it's getting closer to 20 years ago now when I was first exposed to Dr. Bruce Lipton's work. He's a cell biologist. He's really, most people would attribute him to being like the father of epigenetics in communication to popular culture and, modern medicine and science. And so, again, just the blessing of doing this work in this show, I got to have multiple conversations with him over the years. And, he told me from the very beginning, when I went to school, when I was in my expensive university, we were really in the age of genes cause diseases.
Right.
Right. And the truth is, and again, there's multiple published peer-reviewed studies on this, top scientific journals, affirming that less than 1% of all diseases are directly caused by defective genes.
Isn't that wild?
Right? And so keeping that in mind, then what happens? How do we manifest these diseases? And so this is looking towards the new frontier of epigenetics. And I struggled, and I didn't want to say new because it's not new. It's just new that we know about it.
That's right.
And gene expression. So we have this conglomeration of genes that make us up, but there are hundreds or even thousands of possible expressions of what a gene can look like, or the proteins that can be printed out of you. All right. The genes are blueprints to print out materials that make you up. And it's going to be dependent most by the environment. And Dr. Lipton continued to correct me and it's not just the tangible environment that you're thinking about. It's the environment of your mind.
Yeah.
It is the number one thing.
Yep.
Because your perception of the environment affects your body more than the environment itself. All right. And so what I mean by that also, our thoughts create chemistry in our bodies instantaneously. Every single thought that we have changes our chemistry. We produce different hormones and neurotransmitters instantaneously. All of our trillions of cells are immediately changed just based on our thoughts. That is so powerful. But what are you thinking? What are you thinking right now? What are you chronically thinking? What is your habitual thoughts? And are these thoughts of fear and stress and worry and doubt, lack? Or are they thoughts of affirmation and joy and love and peace? And we get to choose. But in our society today, we're so distracted, we forget that we have a choice. And we often just become victims to our environment or our circumstances. And so that's just kind of setting the table. And so what I want to share today are some of the things, because our gene expression is really, if we're breaking it down to this foundational level, that's how we're experiencing this process of aging, is through what our genes are doing. Because we know that we can have a genetic expression that can change and make us essentially like a younger version of ourselves. And specifically, so let's go through some of these.
Yeah.
So this just came out this summer. All right. And this was conducted by researchers at Harvard, published in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. And they were looking at rate of aging and using all these different biological markers, including monitoring their telomere length. And I'm sure you guys have talked about telomeres many times over the years. So these are the end caps on our chromosomes. And so as we have each cell division, a little bit gets clipped off. That's associated with biological aging, one of the strongest markers we have. And so these researchers were looking at vitamin D3, omega-3s, and placebo to find out, do any of these common supplements slow our rate of aging? All right. This was a 4-year study. All right. And they tracked all these different biological markers. And after compiling the data at the end of this 4-year study period, the individuals who were taking the vitamin D3 aged about 3 years less in that 4-year study than people who were taking the placebo or even the omega-3s. The omega-3s didn't really make a difference when it came to biological aging. And so it was 2,000 IUs, international units a day. It's like 40 cents a day.
That's nothing.
Incredible. Again, 4-year study, the people taking the vitamin D3 only aged essentially 1 year biologically. And also, let's take a step back actually, because we subconsciously think that the calendar is toxic. We think the calendar is deadly. The calendar is killing us. We have associations with the calendar and certain markers of aging. But the truth is, and this is based on the widest body of study that we have, there's a variance. There's a statistical variance in biological aging versus, so we've got the calendar, right? We've got chronological aging, and we've got phenotypic or biological aging. So this is what your cells are doing, cognitive function, the health of your organs, immune system, all that stuff, right? And so the calendar is correlated with aging, but it does not cause aging. All right. There's a statistical variance of 5 years on average, older or younger, for what your calendar year is for the average person.
Half a decade.
Right? Statistical variance, 5 years older or younger. But then there are outliers who are 10 or 20 years older than their biological age, or 10 or 20 years younger than their biological age. That's exciting.
Yeah.
And I did all this stuff, whatever. I was almost 8 years younger than my chronological age.
Through what you were doing? Oh, you got tested.
Yeah, I did the whole, gamut of blood tests and whatnot. And again, this is we're still figuring this stuff out, but, keeping that in mind, the calendar is not toxic. All right. And so there are how are certain people aging younger or aging slower than other people? Vitamin D3 is one of these powerful markers. Where does it naturally come from?
Sun.
Having some time in the fucking sun.
That's what that points to me. That stuff like that research that just highlights just how important getting outside in the sun is more than anything else.
Do you think? I think it's less of magic from the sun, although it's magical, and more a result of the deficiency of sunlight that we all just are chronically under because.
Well, yeah, that's why the supplementation can make such an impact. Exactly. Is because we're so deficient that makes a huge difference.
You got it. And so, but the study, if you just read it at face value, it's like, I need to take vitamin D3, right? And that can absolutely be helpful. Absolutely. 2,000 IUs a day. All right. But what is the core problem here?
Yep.
Right? 60% of our population in the United States is deficient in vitamin D. 60%. And for some demographics, it's far more.
Yeah.
Like African American, 80%.
Yep.
Hispanic, 70. All right. Why is that? Got a little more melanin.
Yeah.
All right. So a little bit less absorption of that, as you said, the magical interaction with the sun's rays in our biology. Right. And so people with more melanin need even more time in the sun, right? But we've had all this marketing. And of course, I'm not saying to go from spending a year 9 to 5 and just in your car and then going to the beach, right, for your vacation.
Yeah.
That's a way to get sunburnt and fuck yourself up.
That's right, go the other way.
But to have a lifestyle where you're not getting sun exposure because of all of this silliness, because of our lifestyle, yes, and the busyness, but also because of the messages around the sun is trying to kill you, right? And so it's being smart and we don't have life here on this planet without that flaming ball. We don't, And so just a real quick caveat sidebar, the sun's rays hits us. Like we have photoreceptors on our skin that picks up light and it sends data to all of our cells. It's critical for setting our circadian rhythm, which I'm going to get to next. And beyond that, this vitamin D production, it interacts with cholesterol in our system as well. But then there are all these processes. It's got to associate with your liver. It's got to associate with your kidneys. Like if you have poor function of all these other organs, like you may not even have good conversion of vitamin D. That could be another place for supplementation. But this is why, and here's the takeaway for everybody with this one. We'll just say tip number 1, vitamin D supplementation. 2,000 IUs a day. It has to be vitamin D3. When I was in college, we were not taught that. All right. It didn't matter what was in my Centrum vitamin, right? So vitamin D3, because that is more of an end product for our bodies to use it, okay? If you have poor liver function or kidney function, whatever the case might be, it's more usable by our body. Number 2, you need to take it with vitamin K2 because it's going to associate with calcium as well. We want to make sure that stuff is ending up in the right place. All right, we don't want the calcium to end up in your arteries. And it's vitamin K2 and D3 together. Again, 2,000 IUs a day. And then the last tip within this, I mean, we can keep going, but it would be to get some sunlight, to get some sun exposure, make it a mandate, make it a habit, and help to kind of build up that resilience. Because the sun is just like, I haven't seen you in a while. Fuck you. So it's just like having that association where we're getting some sun exposure because your body needs it.
I mean, to tie it all together, the stuff that we've been talking about, maybe the healthiest thing you could possibly do for yourself is take a 30-minute walk with someone you love out in the sun. I mean, we talk about relationships being so powerful, and I know that a lot of our podcast is dedicated to nutrition and strength training and all the things that are related to that. But this is why I think as my training career has evolved, a lot of times that's what my initial tips to someone getting started looks like is like, hey, before I write you this extensive workout program and this crazy diet with all the macros balanced, like get outside and go walk with your spouse for 30 minutes to an hour out in the sun, like every day. And that right there will make such an impact on 90% of people's lives just doing that alone.
And just to back you up, like if I took somebody as a fitness professional who never exercised, and I take him in the gym and I just beat the crap out of him, you know what you're going to see? Damage, overstress, harm. That's what's going to happen if I take somebody who doesn't work out And I'm like, we're going to do a hardcore workout. And the data would show, if that's what we studied, don't do this. You guys, exercise is terrible for you. Oh my God, look at these studies on people who never exercise and then suddenly go spend a day at the gym. This is terrible. It's causing cancer, inflammation, injuries, heart disease. This is not good. This is what we're looking at when we're looking at people who are getting sunburn, is that their bodies aren't able to, they haven't been around, they haven't been outside. They can't adapt to going outside to the park for 2 hours because otherwise they're indoors all day long. And so what you see are cancer rates going up. You see damage, you see sunburn. So this is where the messaging got all messed up. The result of which being, hey, here's what you do if you do go out in the sun. Let's just cover you in these chemicals.
Harmful chemicals.
Let's put all these xenoestrogens on your body. Let's talk about that for a second, Shawn. Because that's controversial, and I know you don't mind going in that direction. Let's talk about these sunscreens that people have used historically to protect themselves from the dangerous sun. And what have you learned about the effects of these sunscreens themselves?
Yeah. So it's not difficult to find at this point. The benzenes, and there's, as you mentioned, you got these parabens and phthalates and, but here's the thing, even with all the newly invented chemicals that we are slathering on our bodies to protect us, but we're doing this with hope and trust, okay? What we need to ask is it working? Have rates of skin cancer gone down? No.
Yeah.
They've gone up since we've been using sunscreen. All right. It's not working. It's not working. And so we're doing something that contributes to poor health. It's carcinogens, all these different carcinogens. But that's where I'm a big fan of results. Like, if it's working, I'm for it. Like give me all of it. Right. But it's just not working. And so it's just it's a very silly thing. But there are ways to protect your skin. Obviously, again, clothing, wear a hat,
get a tan,
zinc,
slowly get a tan,
slowly build. That's the ultimate.
That's it.
Slowly
Small
build
exposure.
up exposure to the sun. Your body knows how to handle the sun because your genes evolved. And that was my whole point with starting it off with the vitamin D3 thing is we've got, thousands of studies on vitamin D now in all these different areas of health that it's impacting, whether this is improving sexual function, cardiovascular health, cognitive function, immune system function. But at the heart, we've got really great data on all of the epigenetic influence it has. Thousands of your genes are instantly influenced when your body's producing and or you're bringing in more vitamin D3.
Yeah, vitamin D technically could even be referred to as a hormone. This is the way it acts in the body, which is pretty remarkable. Going back to how your perception of your environment affects your genes more than the environment itself. What's interesting to me is when you look at the data on people with trauma or stress and its correlation to autoimmune disorders and diseases. It's this really strong connection. It's as if hating yourself turns your immune system against yourself, which makes perfect sense. If you're perceiving something, your body will follow that perception because that's the most accurate thing it could possibly find is your perception of things, not necessarily the subjective. It's not like a computer that it measures the environment. It's how you perceive the environment that changes those things.
Yeah. I'm going to go there since we're looking at what can we do to slow down biological aging? It's your mindset.
Yeah.
And have you guys talked to Dr. Ellen Langer?
No.
Yet? So she's considered to be the mother of mindfulness. She's the first woman to receive tenure in the Harvard psychology department where she's still teaching today. All of these studies that are conducted on how our thoughts affect our biology, she started this.
Oh, wow.
Literally in 1979 was her first study that she conducted looking at the impact of your beliefs in your environment and your biology. And so she took 8 elderly old men and they retrofitted an environment to be decades younger, right? So the environment that they bring them to has like posters from that time, decades earlier. They only played the music from decades earlier. The newspapers and magazines were more from youthful versions of themselves.
It's like a time machine.
It's a time machine. And the results were I mean, unbelievable. Let me tell you some of these results.
Did you know that?
I remember.
Never
this
heard
stuff.
of that.
I didn't know that. I wonder if she's friends with Arthur Brooks. I can't believe I've never heard of her.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar at all.
Yeah.
So after compiling the data, because what they did was they took all of these different biometrics before and after, they took photos before and after. So these individuals within a week had improvements in their vision, improvements in their flexibility, dexterity,
crazy.
improvements in their IQ and overall cognition, improvements in their gait, improvements in their hearing.
In 1 week?
Wow.
How you don't hear about an elderly man getting their hearing back or having their hearing improved without
wild.
some kind of medical intervention. And their faces were visibly younger. Like they had people to actually like look at before and after pictures.
That's hilarious.
And they looked younger.
In
they
a one week?
In 1 week.
Yeah, wow.
Being in an environment that said, hey, I'm my younger version of myself. They changed. Okay.
cool
And what it really boils down to is what's
That's a
happening
cool
at the
study.
level of the genes. And so how do we utilize this? We have to, if we strive to have a more youthful disposition, we have to think younger, right? We tend, as we get older, to blame things on age haphazardly, right? You get an injury, right? Maybe you injure your Achilles, right? And you blame it on it's because I'm older. Halliburton just tore his. Jason Tatum tore his. The difference is they're young and they're just like, I'm just gonna rehab and get better.
Yeah.
We tend to start chalking things up to these things when people get hurt at all ages. Yes, you can slow down how quickly you get well, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Yeah.
And so we need to be careful about haphazardly blaming things on age. And also, what are the ingredients that tell your genes that you are younger to keep producing these young? And I'm going to actually share a study in a little bit demonstrating this. But one of the most powerful inputs is something that we do not think about or value enough, and it's play.
Yep.
Children have a disposition of play. All right. And as we get older, we stop playing. And so having that as like a hallmark in our lives to keep playing, to keep a youthful mindset, a youthful disposition, if we want to, again, kind of mimic these results in this trial. And the same thing with Ellen. When I had the opportunity to talk with her, she plays tennis, you know what I'm saying? She's like, I think she's mid 70s or 80s, whatever.
78.
She had a terrible injury, like maybe 10, 15 years ago. Like and the doctor's like, you're not going to be able to play tennis again. She's like, fuck that. You don't know who I am. I'm going to continue to do what I love. And she got better and she healed, you know? And so countless examples of this. I want to give one more since I'm with you guys. The crazy thing was meeting her. I'd referenced her so many times, and also the work of her students. One of her students is Dr. Alia Crum, and she was doing work at Stanford. And it was the milkshake experiment. All right. And so I love this study. All right. So they blended up a big batch of milkshakes and they were giving them to study participants. We'll just say that the milkshakes were 380 calories, but they labeled them differently. Some of the milkshakes were labeled as, when they gave them to participants, as high calorie indulgent milkshakes where they put 620 calories on it. Same calories, all right, but they labeled it different. And then for some people, they put a label of low calorie, sensible milkshake that's only 180 calories. Same amount of calories, all right? They compiled the data. They were looking at, and this was the cool thing about it, they're doing blood tests, and they're looking at hunger and satiety hormones, so ghrelin. When the individuals had what they believed to be a more indulgent milkshake that was high calories, their ghrelin plummeted, all right? So they were not hungry potentially for a significant amount of time afterwards because their biology said, I already had a lot.
Sure.
The people who had what they believed to be the low calorie milkshake, even though it was the same amount of calories for everybody, their ghrelin didn't budge, didn't change. So what does that say for us practically is that they're going to be hungry again shortly thereafter. They're going to want to eat more because they believe that what they were consuming wasn't that much. All right.
This actually is so cool because it also proves why we don't have a lot of success with like all these low calorie snacks that have been around forever, because you subconsciously eat that little 120 calorie snack and go like, oh, I'm hungry again a half hour later, and you end up eating what the 400 or 500 calorie snack would have been just through 3 of those instead.
Yeah. Let alone the value, the actual nutritional value it contains. our belief about it supersedes so much. And this is what I call, I talked about this in my previous book, Eat Smarter, these epicaloric controllers, right? Calories, it's a very sound science, yes. But even as I say that, it's the least sound measurement that we have. Because like we can go right now and measure out 100 yards. It's always 100 yards. Calories are always different. What is on that label for that pack of D's nuts?
Yeah.
All right. Shout out to, I think, is it Mr. Beast? Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast. Yeah. Mr. Beast has D's nuts. It might say 400 calories, but it could be 300. Yeah. It could be 500. It's going to depend. Yeah. Right. And the same thing with your exercise. Like, oh, you do the math, whatever. I'm going to burn off whatever amount of calories on this treadmill. Yeah. It's going to be different. Yeah. You can't, it is so variable in and of itself. Yeah. It's just that, but that's just the foundation of it. But then we have these epicaloric controllers that determine how your body responds or interacts to the calories that you consume or the calories that you expend. And so we need to put more attention on those things, not to negate the value of having calorie management, but what's going on with your microbiome, what's going on with the nutrients that you're eating themselves. We know that the macros influence the calories and how your body processes them. We know the power of protein.
Stress in your day.
Stress, sleep has a huge impact on your how your body processes calories. Huge impact. And several other factors. And so, and not to mention, the quality of the food itself. I think I might have shared with you guys the sandwich experiment. Did I share that with you guys?
No, I don't know.
Do it again. Let me hear it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So this study was published in Food and Nutrition Research, and the scientists wanted to find out, would our bodies respond differently metabolically to an ultra-processed sandwich versus what they consider to be a whole food sandwich? Same amount of calories, same macros, but one sandwich was cheddar cheese and whole grain bread, and the other was white bread and cheese product, right? Like Kraft singles, which we know they can't call it cheese. It's not Kraft cheese, it's Kraft singles. Yeah. They can't legally call it cheese. There's not enough cheese in the cheese. All right. And so they consume these sandwiches. And of course, they were able to measure how much calories you're expending, right? Because most of our calories are actually coming out through our breathing. All right. We could sweat it out and all that kind of stuff, but we're just expending calories. That's the primary. And so they strap them to these monitors. And so they're measuring how much energy is coming out after eating these respective sandwiches. And here's what happened. Again, these sandwiches had the same amount of calories and same macros on paper. But when people ate the ultra-processed version of the sandwich, they had a 50% reduction in calorie burn after eating that sandwich than when they ate the whole food sandwich.
50%?
50%
I would remember that. I don't remember that. You remember that?
Right?
No, that's interesting.
Again, this is published in Food and Nutrition Research. And now here's the thing. What's going on here? What I refer to that as like, it's creating a metabolic clog. Like it's just a complexity. It's making it's difficult for your body to process this stuff. And so you end up retaining more of it. But let me be clear. If people read further into it, you could assume like, this is kind of a temporary thing. Your body will sort things out over time. But what if you do that every day?
Yeah.
Day after day after
meal
day.
after meal.
Guess what? You have a severely deranged and clogged metabolism where your body is just having a hard time processing all this fake shit.
Yeah. It's to try to separate food into its chemical makeup, calories, macros, nutrients, which are all important, but just to make it just that completely flies in the face of human behavior, culture, history. I mean, how many people eat food based off of it's just pure nutrient? Like this is what it's never that. It's always I'm hanging out with somebody, or I'm watching this movie, or it's breakfast, lunch, dinner,
or I crave
or
something.
It's a wedding, or I'm sad. Food, it means so much more to us. So I always thought it was silly. In fact, good coaches know this. Good personal trainers and coaches coach behaviors and not macros and calories, and have far more success over that long term than people that just are like, here's your macros, follow this, that, and the other, and let's see what happens.
Precisely. Yeah. I totally agree. Again, we have a tendency, I get it. We like to simplify things, but we tend to oversimplify things.
Of course.
You know, and something is so complex. Like, I was just thinking about, I mean, he showed me the megalodon tooth.
Yeah.
Cool, huh?
Right? Like, this, we don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
We have no clue. We're just here trying to figure it out and maybe, you know, enjoy the process a little bit here and there. Like, this is all just really a great mystery. We know like a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a percent about what's going on.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. Yeah. Now, part of that discovery is understanding the genes, right? And so what I wanted to share with you guys earlier, just like a very specific testament to this. So this was published. Now, first of all, let me tell you the title of the study. Resistance exercise reverses aging in human skeletal muscle. This was published in PLOS One. Now I'm going to talk specifically about gene expression. The researchers took 25 healthy elderly people with an average age of like 68 and 26 young adults. They had an average age of around 24 and collected their genetic data. What I loved about this too, they also took muscle biopsies from the participants, which is not fun. The elderly participants were put onto a structured full body strength training program for 26 weeks. And the researchers had them to just do 2 full body strength training sessions each week, progressively increasing the amount of weight that they lifted as they got stronger. What you guys do.
Yeah.
Now, this is where it gets interesting. They tracked nearly 600 of their genes from the young people and the older people. The young people didn't do anything different in their lifestyle. The older people started strength training.
So the control group, young people.
Yeah. And so 600 genes related to aging showed significant differences between the young people and the old people. The old people's genes expression just was like all associated with stuff that we attribute to older people,
right,
and being stuff that's kind of getting messed up. Now, here's what happened. At the end of the study, again, this was a 26-week strength training program for the older people. Nearly 200 of their genes in these older people showed remarkable change in their expression, now mirroring the younger people. All right? 200 of those genes, almost 200 of their genes were now looking as if they were younger, decades younger.
So you couldn't even tell between the 200 and the other. It was like these are the same age.
So we're not even saying slowing down the aging process. We're saying potentially reversing it through strength training.
Yep.
How profound is that?
So profound.
Yeah. I always refer to, well, exercise in general, if you had to label anything a fountain of youth, which there's so many things that can contribute to this, but exercise in general, and then more specifically, I would say strength training, just because of it directly combats all the physical things that we would normally attribute to aging. Frailty, mobility, strength, insulin sensitivity. All the things that we would normally say would decline as you get older. That form of exercise directly combat. So it's not a surprise to me that you would see on a test reversal of age with genes, because that's what's happening.
Absolutely,
you're going backwards with that stuff. When we're talking about mindset, at this point, I don't think it's woo-woo. I think at this point, people will hear it and go, "Yeah, I've seen studies. It makes sense." The challenge, though, is how do you change that mindset, right? So it's like, okay, well, I just think like a kid. Like, what does that look like? One of the things I like to point to is the data on stress. So if you look at studies on stress, chronic stress, you have studies where they say, okay, let's list all the areas of stress in your life, and then let's take them out of your life, and let's see what happens. And then we have other studies where they take people who list all the things in stress, and they say, we're not going to take anything out. We're just going to now try to work on assigning meaning and purpose to the stress. And the meaning and purpose side crushes the take things out of my life that are stressful type of things. And for me, that makes perfect sense, because objectively, if you live in a modern society, there's always, situations, but objectively speaking, we have far less objective hardcore stress than people 100 years ago. Like, this is just a fact. Like, they
got to deal with a megalodon.
Yeah, or even 100 years ago. Like, Great Depressions and World Wars, and just your kid got bronchitis and they might die. Yet we're more stressed. So I don't necessarily, and a lot of times people are like, oh, we have all this stress in our life. I think it's less of that and more of we have no meaning and purpose behind the stuff that we're doing. How do you feel about some of that?
Yeah. Man, this reminds me of my conversation with health psychologist Kelly McGonigal. And this was the first thing that I ever shared that went crazy viral. It's like 100 million views on social media. And it was just this little snippet from our conversation. And what she was talking about, in the clip, she was talking about how exercise elicits what, is quote, hope molecules.
Yeah, yeah.
We of course.
I remember this clip.
Myokines and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But another part of that conversation and what she really got on my radar for, this was about 10 years ago, was her data affirming how you perceive stress makes all the difference in the world. So if somebody is dealing with a stressful situation, they see it like this stress is just killing me, it's breaking me down, and so be it. Yeah. But when you can perceive it as this stress is making me stronger, I have what it takes to make it through this. This too shall pass. Just having a more affirmative mindset in the face of stress. Again, the mindset piece. People were, in fact, more resilient, had a healthier gene expression, had healthier biology because they chose to see the stress differently. Now, I say chose very loosely because most of the time we're unconscious that we do this.
Yeah.
Some people we think just seem to have this temperament where I just see things like that, right? Mm-hmm. But you can learn to do that. Yes. And you can also
100%
unlearn it in a way or be beaten into a situation where you change and you're like, well, it is taking me down. And any of us, this can happen to. This is the power of remembering, right? And this is why shows like this are so important. This isn't just you're learning stuff. Some stuff you might even know. It's to remember. It's those constant reminders from people that you know and trust to remember how powerful you are, to affect change, to determine how you think, to choose your own thoughts instead of being told what to think, and to be programmed that I can't, I'm disempowered. There's all this stuff going on in the world. And you just said it too, our stress is different today. Mm-hmm. Like especially if you're listening to this, you got a phone. You got a phone. Like we've got so much access and opportunity, and we don't have to worry about it. I don't know if you guys saw this data, but the obesity epidemic is on par, like even in the homeless population, is on par with the general population. So you don't even have to have a home.
Yeah.
And you can be obese, big as you want to be. We have access to food and calories. Again, I'm not saying that it's healthy. So many of our needs are being met, but it's the psychological need of meaning and purpose, right? We need that. We absolutely need that as human beings. And if I'm not particularly prepared, but I have multiple studies affirming how purpose, a sense of purpose, contributes to longevity and slowing down the rate of aging. Many people know, like superficially, the legend of people retiring and then they begin the process of degradation and dying quickly thereafter.
Yeah, clear data on that.
Right? And so even if you retire, quote, retire from a career, you've got to be proactive at investing yourself in something that gives you meaning and purpose. And this is why these long-lived cultures, this is yet another reason why these long-lived cultures with all these centenarians, it's not, again, the food is one thing. Yes, relationships, community, but it's meaning and purpose. Yeah. The elders still have jobs to do. They still have important roles in the community, in the family structure. And we today, more than ever, we have to proactively find that for ourselves because we're so fractured. We're so fractured in our relationships. And we don't have a lack of access to it, but we do have a lack of awareness.
What I see, and that's, by the way, spot on. You look at these old cultures and you compare it to like our culture, where youth is valued and wisdom is not. Getting old here is, you go to Okinawa, you go to Sardinia, and people who are older, or you want their wisdom, you want their, Arthur Brooks wrote this great book on this. And you mentioned how when people retire, their health suddenly declines, but there is a subset of that group where they're actually, they flourish. And he looked into this and said, what's the difference? Well, the difference was that the people who flourished went from doing to teaching. So now they're done with their work, but then they started mentoring and teaching and volunteering, and they just continue to flourish. Whereas the other group was like done with work. It's like, okay, now I'm just going to go sit on a beach or whatever, relax, watch TV. And their health took a terrible dive because of that lack of purpose. And what this, there's a few places that I can see where this is an issue. We're talking about relationships in particular. We know how bad processed foods are. Okay, so I think now this is not even controversial to say that heavily processed foods generally not good for you in pretty much any way. Okay, about the only value of processed foods is their long shelf life. So I could see how there might be some positive applications there. Otherwise, it's just bad for you. What we've done with relationships is we've made them processed. Is what we've done. Same thing we did to food. So we've taken real relationships where I walk out my house, talk to my neighbor, knock on someone's door, someone comes to my house, we're hanging out, got to do the weird, awkward thing, and they're coming over, the house is clear, whatever. So that little bit of work, but now it's face-to-face, and we've just processed it. So it's like, I'm talking to people, I'm on social media.
I have 100 Facebook friends.
Yeah, I'm texting, which, processed food gives you calories. You're not going to starve. Processed relationships is not like just being in a room, not talking to anybody. But then it's not real relationships, and it's just as bad for you as processed food. And we've processed a lot of things, and relationships, in my opinion, is one of the worst ones.
So well said.
Yeah, and I think it's so important for men. And this is again back to relationships. Like, I think because I have 4 kids, and I have 2 older and 2 younger from different. I was married, my first marriage and then my second marriage, and I am way different as a father with my younger ones than I was with my older ones when they were little. Had I really had a mentor that I respected, that I went to for these things and said, hey man, I'm going to have kids. You've already had kids, and taken their advice, I think it would have helped.
Absolutely.
I think it would have helped rather than going through it and then be like, oh man, I could have been more patient.
Yeah.
Because I got same experience as you.
How, with the gaps of all the way from teenage all the way up to 30s, what have you seen culturally, like the challenges? I think it's so interesting. Like I know he grew up in the iPhone generation, right? Yeah. Probably, everybody probably has one at school and stuff like that, where your 30-year-old, no one probably had that. She probably just barely got theirs, 10 years ago or whatever. So what has that been like with how different the culture is today, raising them? Have you found that you've had to mold as a father? Do you find yourself having to talk about something you really didn't have to talk about before? What's that been like?
Yeah, this experience is way different with my youngest. Because it's the first time that somebody's acting like I'm not cool, right? Because with my daughter, she would see it. They're just like her teachers are trying to hit on me, picking her up, and all her little friends like me, And the same thing, my oldest son, our cultures are so close because I was 21 so when he was in high school,
you were still hip to that generation.
Yeah, exactly. We listened to the same stuff,
You're a boomer to this generation,
right? And I remember, he has started to act a little bit like I'm not cool, a little bit, but then his friends were following me on social media or whatever. And they're like, dude, your dad was with, I don't know, whoever they were following. He's like, yo, your dad is, And so it just he was like, yeah, you're right.
He all right.
And so, but, seeing that transition with the, with the technology for sure. My kids, both of my kids were in it, my older 2 kids. But for him, now I know. And so we were the last, he knows this, to get an iPhone and, into middle school. And also we have family culture around it, right? And so the social media piece, right? That's incredibly dangerous. And we know this. There's too many studies already that are cited on this stuff. And the fact that there's kids in elementary school getting phones.
That's crazy.
All right. 6-year-old kids with phones is
crazy.
But again, if we don't know, we don't know.
Yeah.
And parents are not trying to hurt their kids. It's just it seems so, it's insidious.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
It's culturally accepted. So everybody thinks it's the norm.
Yeah. You just put the kid in front of a screen. Right. And so, just having a culture of healthier relationship with the devices. This is a problem for all of us. We know it. Picking up my phone for those that don't see the video, but And so one of the things that we observe, like family dinners, right? We don't bring phones to the table, something very practical. And he'll tell you, like, I'm the main one that I don't even have my phone near me a lot of times, right? So like if we're all hanging out in the living room, for example, like my phone is in the kitchen, we don't have the phone, especially at bedtime, right? Having kids, having their study just came out, I think last week or last month, on, in particular, was found when kids have their phone at night.
Yeah.
Right. And it's so obvious. Like if the child has their phone at night, interrupting their sleep. And so what the study was affirming was worse mental health, higher rates of all manner of, all of that, depression, anxiety, and, ideation. Right. And so having that phone at night, so he doesn't have the phone in his room at night.
It's good.
Right. And so just having some basic parameters around it, but also knowing he's going to have his phone, he's going to be talking with his friends, he's going to be watching some, video clips. Like I just showed you his AAU basketball clips, for example. Like he loves that kind of stuff. And so that's great, but it's being mindful, monitoring as well, because it. I could just put up a video that we're all watching. Maybe it's a Mr. Beast video, but then it's like some dick pill commercial comes up or whatever, just like, and if he was younger, it's like, what is that?
Yeah.
What is a blue chew?
Yeah.
Or whatever. I think it's blue chew. I don't know. But, it's just like the culture that we exist in is going to be putting stuff in front of our kids.
Yeah.
And so we've got to educate them about it, be proactive, tell them in advance.
That's the key right there. Yeah. I have friends that are going through trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube, right? And take it away. And you could see the resentment from the teenagers and the kids that are just like, what? You've always let me have this. Now I can't. And there's not a lot of communication. There's not a lot of education to the why. And then I have a cousin who homeschooled their kids. They have teenagers and they have very strict parameters around the phone, social media, all those things. And I remember talking to her as a teenager, like, does that bother you that your mom and dad only let you do it for this long, or you have this and that? She goes, yeah, I wish I could do it more. And then I said, when you become a parent one day and you have kids, what will you do? I would do the same thing. So, and that shows me that they can admit, yeah, of course I want it more, but then also they've done a good job as parents of informing and educating them why they're doing that, and enough to where she's saying, yeah, when I become a parent, I would enforce the same rules.
I think it's why the example, because like I said, I have 4 kids, and my 2 older ones were, especially my oldest, when he was growing up, this is when it all started becoming popular. I just wasn't aware. I thought it was like TV. Like when I was a kid, we had TV. So it's like TV. It's not like TV. It's very different from TV. With my younger ones, much more strict. And even my 15-year-old, it's like much more strict. In fact, she always tells me, my friends get to do all this and that. I'm like, I don't want you to be like everybody, And I show her the stats. You want to be like this? And she's like, okay. But the example that was given to me, which I thought was perfect, it's like, would you just put a bunch of candy and garbage food around your kids and then say, you choose what you want to eat. You can make those choices. You know what you're going to do. No, they don't have the capacity, the maturity to be able to make good choices when they're presented with things that are so well engineered. Now multiply that times 10,000, and that's what you have with the engineered algorithms. It's the equivalent of processed food engineering itself as you're eating it. That's what the algorithms are doing. As you're using them, they are engineering themselves to be that much more attractive. So if you give that to your kid, your teenage kid even, and you're just like, you educate them, you're setting them up for failure, in my strong opinion. So in my opinion on this has changed dramatically as I've become more educated on this. So with my youngest ones, it's going to be, I'm going to keep them away from it as long as I possibly can. And again, even my 15-year-old, she gets 5 minutes a day on Instagram. 5 minutes. Let me tell you, we fight over this still all the time. And I'm like, we're going to keep it at 5.
Hey, listen, good. That's good dad shit right there. That's good dad shit. And my son can see the difference with his friends, you know.
That's good. He has that awareness.
Yeah,
because there's a very clear difference between these kids that had unfettered access versus the ones that haven't.
For sure. And of course, like kids today, a lot of times they get together and get on their phones together.
Sure.
Right.
Which is so funny to see.
And so, but of course, like they're sharing memes and stuff like that too. You know, it's a way to interact, and we do the same, you know. But to be able to see the difference when a kid is easily distracted, right, having a difficult time focusing, right, we're programming not just our children, but ourselves, but especially our children, to struggle to pay attention to things.
That's
like
right.
We already have this epidemic,
That's
right, of ADHD and ADD, but it's not an accident, right? It's not an accident. And, you know, the research is like, you know, maybe we had 2 to 3 minutes of like attention span. Now it's like,
Yeah.
you know,
Seconds.
And our brains are very good at automation, and it's just learning. And so unlearning is more difficult, as you just mentioned.
That's right.
So if we can come into this with some intention, with some structure, with communication, and also being a dad, being a parent, and also having these parameters, sometimes it seems tough, but
Yeah, it's tough.
yeah,
You're going to be different from everybody else. That's the point.
that's the point.
That's the point. Yeah. If you want to be healthy, spiritually, mentally, physically, you have to live differently than the norm, because the norm is not healthy. And that's the conversation I constantly have with my 15-year-old. She's like, everybody else, like, we're not going to be like everybody else. And I'm sorry, but I love you too much. And so that's the struggle, 100%. Bro, thanks for coming back on.
Yeah.
Good time.
Always a good time.
Great conversation.
Thank you guys so much.
Always a great conversation. Great podcast. You're one of the few podcasts in our space that has stood the test of time. We were just talking about this the other day. We've been on air now for 10 years, and we've seen so many health podcasts that, you know, come up to the top, disappear, whatever. And you're always doing such a great job. And that's a testament to the authenticity and just your ability to communicate and bring out the best in people. So yeah, good job, man.
I appreciate that, guys. Thank you so much. Hey, if you like this video, make sure to check out this video right here. Driven by claims of rapid weight loss, improved mental health, and even reversal of chronic diseases. But is intermittent fasting as miraculous as it's purported to be, especially when it comes to fat loss? What does the science say? And are there any downsides? And if it does work, what are the best science-backed practices